Welcome to the creative brain of Dean Hawk. Get ready to be challenged, inspired, and equipped to become a better ministry leader.
Hey, welcome back to the Dean Hawk Leadership Podcast. So glad to have you joining us today. I just want to encourage you that if you're enjoying this podcast, we would just invite you to share it with your ministry friends. Let them know about it. We just would like to get the good news out there. Hey, this month is the month of November, and we're just heading into the holiday season. And I know it's going to be a busy time, but thanks for taking the time to say, I want to learn, I want to grow, I want to become a better leader. This month, I want to talk about leaders that last. What are the elements that cause some leaders to endure and others to not make it? Paul said, I've finished my course, I've ran my race. And what are the attributes of those that finish their race? What are the things that allows a minister to produce long-term, sustainable ministry? And I've been doing this ministry gig now for 37 years. Not bad for only being 40. But that was a joke, people. If you're not watching video and you're just hearing the audio, I'm way beyond that. Anyways, I've been watching people for 37 years, and I just jotted down some things that I've seen and witnessed because I've seen people succeed and have this amazing track record. I see people that are like a roller coaster, just up and down and high and low. I've seen people that start and stop and get out of this ministry and start in that ministry, and they're always in transition mode. And what produces sustainable ministry? What are those attributes? And so I've just jotted some down. Hope you'll jot them down. And now this isn't like, I want you to view this not as in, oh my gosh, I have to be and do every one of these. This is more of a checks and balance of how am I doing in this area? And so I want you to do a personal assessment. So the first one, and I will say for the rest of these, there's no particular order when I put them together, except for this first one. This one seems to be a benchmark of really establishing a winner and a loser, a long runner or a short-term sprinter. And that is this. Those individuals that are leaders that last, number one, they have a highly disciplined personal lifestyle. And what does that mean? What does that look like? Here's the way I would put it for my life. You're self-assessing, you're self-testing, you're self-adjusting. You're disciplining yourself. You are the number one person to tell you no. You don't have outside forces directing you and saying, hey, you shouldn't do that. Hey, that's not a good idea. You have become self-disciplined and self-motivated. And these kinds of individuals have developed the routines and the practices that they live and follow. And that is spiritual practices, soul and mental disciplines, and the physical disciplines. And so it's developing those things down to the simple fact of exercising on a regular basis, telling yourself no. People around my office, and I get them all the time, they know that I love Oreo Thins. I don't like the other ones, regular ones now. I just like the Oreo Thins. But I can't just sit around and eat Oreo Thins. It is a snack that I enjoy, but it is on a limited basis. So I am guarding what I am eating. I want to make sure that my body sustains the ministry that I want to do, that I'm not having a heart attack, that I'm not developing diabetes because I'm overeating. I want to make sure that I'm taking care of my body. My wife sends me to get physicals and colonoscopies and all kinds of wonderful tests. But here is the joy. I know where I'm getting my cholesterol checked. I am being intentional on taking care of the temple so that I can produce and I can stand up on a Sunday morning and preach 3 times. I'm going to the gym. I'm getting on the treadmill. I'm disciplining myself physically. Then I've developed the soul arena, the mind arena of disciplines. What will I allow or not allow my thought life to go to? What will I allow my eyes to see and to linger and to stay upon? the spiritual disciplines of are you being spiritually disciplined in your time with the Lord? Are you disciplined in being intentional on growing and developing yourself spiritually? And so those personal disciplines in almost every successful leader that I see, that I know personally, that I see from a distance, I see exuding from them this arena of a disciplined lifestyle, and it has produced fruit in their life. Secondly, that goes right in harmony with that is leaders that last. They maintain an authentic intimacy and relationship with God. We've all been there. I am guilty myself that where I've gone to the Word to find a message to preach, not to bask in God's presence, not to say, God, let your Word change me, mold me, and shape me, but I am desperate because I have to preach in 2 hours, in 3 days, or 2 weeks, whatever it is. I'm going to get something for my work. It's not to grow me. And so I think it's important that you're developing those personal devotional times. And here's what I have found in 2018, beginning of the year, the Lord made some shifts in me, and we're going to be talking about some of that in upcoming months. But I changed my devotional time. I went back to a paper Bible. I began to really be intentional on not reading for accomplishment, but just reading to feed. And you know when you have a good meal and you're full and you say, I really shouldn't have any more, but you reach for more of the mashed potatoes, you reach for another rib, you reach for another chicken finger or slice of pizza. You're full, but you're enjoying the moment that you just want to take more. Are you at a place in your walk, have you set time in your personal devotional time that you're not just eating a hamburger on the run? That you're there to sit down and say, God, I want to bask in what your word has for me. And in that time and in that presence with God is where he renews me, he recharges me, he revives me. And I would say this, we've talked about it in other podcasts, but burnout is a result of not overworking, but not overworking causes us to not have time in God's presence. That the inner joy goes away and it becomes a job and it becomes drudgery, and I get burned out because I don't see the meaning and the purpose and the value. Number 3 is we've got to keep family first. If you want to be a leader that lasts, you've got to have your family with you. Success means nothing without those closest to you being there to celebrate it with. You can have the largest church, the biggest ministry organization that the world has ever seen, but if you're going home to an empty house because you've forsaken all for the call, and that means your spouse, your kids, and you have no relationship, it's going to be a pretty empty, vain life. Place a high priority on family. The Bible says, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul? I would adjust that and say, what does it profit a pastor, a minister, to have a great ministry and lose his family? And so we've got to keep our priorities in balance, and we have to live those priorities. My relationship with God is first. My relationship with my spouse, there is nothing that is more important than that relationship behind God. And then thirdly is my relationship with my kids. Number 4, leaders that last is they make it hard to sin. They make it hard to sin. What are you saying? Here's the way I would put it. They live their life and with no secrets. They've set boundaries. They've made it hard to find those places that for sin to get in. And so here's the way I like to put it. Build a moat around your life. Apply accountability measures and set those things into place that will keep you from others harming you or you harming yourselves, down to the simple things of we all have Covenant Eyes on all of our electronics. It's an accountability. Not that we want to look at porn, not that we want to look at things inappropriate, but in a down moment, in a low moment, we could be tempted to. And I think that's the thing. I remember John Maxwell talking about his friends that he had seen over the last 40 plus years of ministry that had morally failed. And he said, the one common thread I could find about them all is every one of them said, it will never happen to me. And so we need to be wise and be available and to know that we could be tempted. And so we set those safeguards in place and we make it difficult to sin. That we are answering our phones, that we're being accountable and that people know where we are and what we're doing. And I think that leads right into number 5 is leaders that last live a transparent life. Secrecy is the fertile ground for sin to blossom. If we live an open and transparent life with our spouse, with our family, with our staff, and live a transparent life, where are you? Where are you now? Where are you going? What's your schedule today? My wife and I have this agreement that no matter where we are, no matter what we're doing, she knows I will answer her phone call. And I will say, if I'm in a luncheon, if I'm in a meeting, my wife, and I'll tell her, I've got an important meeting. If she is calling during that meeting, I'll say, this is my wife. I need to take this call. I am sorry. I won't do that for anyone else, but I'll do it for her. And then I'll say, hey, babe, what do you need? I'm in that meeting. And she'll go, oh my gosh, I forgot. I'm so sorry. And then we'll hang up. Call me later. But I want her to know that she has that access into my life and into my world. Number 6, love has to be your motivator. Love is the motivator of all that we do in this career called ministry. We already know you're probably not doing it for the money. It's probably not going to be up there. Maybe some of you are. You're probably not going to do it for the fame and the glory because it's really not that big of a highlight to do what we do. Most people don't. We are more underappreciated than overappreciated. And so love has to be that motivator. That love for God is what drives us, and that love for people. And if love is the motivator, it's going to keep our motives pure. It's going to keep us focused in the right direction. It's going to keep us focused on the right things. Because see, it's real easy to get sidetracked and we can get consumed about a building. We can get consumed about a project, but we got to bring it all back to people are priority. And it's that love for people that drives us and keeps us going. It's that love for God that we're fulfilling His call and His commission upon our life. Number 8, they have surrounded themselves with winners. Every person I know that is successful, if they are being interviewed, they will say, and they start off, and I'd like to thank, and I'd like to know, and they start naming off key and prime individuals that are on their team, that are around them, that has been a game-changing moment for their movement forward and for their progress. And so never be intimidated by the success of your team members. I know pastors that they get intimidated when they go on vacation and maybe one of their staff members preaches. They get intimidated when they come home and the members are like, man, Pastor Matt knocked it out of the park. Pastor Doug did a great job. I'm thrilled when they do that. I don't want them to be like, oh man, we hate it when you're not here. Because I'll tell you what happens. If you don't have good pinch hitters, when you're not there, people won't come. I want people to come because they know whoever is speaking, whoever is preaching, it's going to be a full course, wonderful meal. And then I encourage you, as I've said in previous podcasts, pray for God to send winners to your team. Maybe you look at your current team and you go, I don't have winners around me. Pray for God to send winners to your team, winners to your church, winners to help hold up your arms. Number 9 is there is a holy discontent. And there's a wrestling here that you don't ever want to be content, but you don't want to live life dissatisfied. Does that make sense? It's a holy discontent. We never want to just sit back and say, we've arrived. And then you shut down and the energy and the momentum starts to wane and you're not feeling that advancement and moving forward. And so I would say this holy discontent is, how can I make it better? How can I improve? Where you're always looking on how can I advance the cause of Christ? How can we become a better church? And you're never satisfied. You celebrate the victories, you celebrate the wins, but you never sit down and say, I have arrived. Number 10, you've got to take calculated risk. The leaders that last that I know is they're taking calculated risk. We could put it this way, it's walking by faith. Because to advance the cause, you've got to take a risk. If we're waiting for everything to line up, for all of the money to be there, for all of the people to be there, for all the pieces to come into play to say, now we're going to hit launch, I'm sorry, you're going to be waiting a long, long time. You've got to take those risks and say, you know what? God has called us to do this. We don't have all the team members, but we've got a good core team to launch this ministry, this arena with. Let's make it happen. And so take those risks. Now, when I say risk, I'm not talking about risking the church's money and making foolish decisions, but I'm talking about when our church was first born and we're meeting in the school and it's a comfortable $1,200 a month rental for the month. And now we're going to move to $4,500 a month. Now, we had the finances and the offering coming in that could sustain that, but it was a risk because it was so comfortable to stay where we were. It would have been easy to say, let's stay here for another year. But every time we took a risk, we saw the church grow and advance. When we stretched ourselves and said, let's live lean and mean, and man, we cut all the fat off of the budget and we said, we're going to make our rent payment, our utility payment, and pay the staff we have. And when we lived lean and mean, we saw the increase, we saw the advancement. And then here's a big one. Successful leaders that last, I would tell you this, they're humble. They're humble. We all know that pride goes before a fall. We've all been around that minister, that pastor that is arrogant and just haughty, and it just can turn your stomach. But some of the most successful pastors and ministers that I've been around in this country are some of the most humble and gentle individuals. Yes, they have great wisdom and great thoughts, but they're humble and they don't esteem their success and take it as personal of look what I've done. Good, bad, or indifferent. Pastor Joel Osteen, I've been around him on a number of occasions, and he's walked into a small room with a handful of pastors, and I was blown away by the authenticity of who he was as an individual, the humility that he's greeting these pastors. He has one of the largest churches in the country, and he is esteeming all of the pastors in that room as they were royalty, as they were dignitaries. He was esteeming and loving and valuing them. And it just spoke very highly to me about his character and his humility. And I believe one of the reasons that he's seen the fruit that he's seen is God said, humble yourself in my presence and I will exalt you. When we stay humble, it allows God to promote and to advance us. Number 12, they're teachable and hungry. They're teachable and hungry. We've got to always be willing to hear wisdom and advice. We always need to be teachable and we need to be hungry for wisdom. We need to grow, constantly learning. We've heard the term leaders are readers. What are you reading? What are you feeding upon? And don't say, well, I just don't have time. Put an audiobook in your car. You've got that commute time between home and the office. Find that space and find that time. And it goes back to number one. If we live a disciplined life and we have our boundaries that we have established, we'll say, no, this is my reading and feeding 30 minutes a day. I'm not going to answer emails. I'm not going to check Facebook. I'm not going to respond to that text. And then number 13, they place a high value on covenant friendships. When I hear other leaders talk, they talk about maybe 1 to 2 to 3 I would call them Jonathan and David's, Paul and Barnabas's. There is a covenant relationship. There is a ministry continuity. There is that core friendship that when I'm going through a bad day, I know I can pick up the phone. And for me, I can call Craig, I can call Daniel, and I can say, hey, dude, I'm not doing well. Hey, dude, I just had a horrible meeting. Hey, dude, I don't know what to do with this staff person. Whatever it is, I have those people that know me inside and out, know my family, know my dynamics, and they can be a voice of wisdom and reason within me. Just in the past couple weeks, a situation happened, and I was offended by a city official. And I walked away from that meeting, and I wanted, my flesh had the shotguns, and we were hunting for bear. I had an injustice, and I was going to rectify it. And I had written an email to let off some steam, and I was going to send that email, and I went, that little nudge on the inside said, why don't you ask Daniel? And I texted Daniel because he was aware of the situation, and I texted Daniel, I said, do you think I should respond, or do you think I should let it go? He immediately texted back and said, my first gut reaction is, let it go. Pray it out, and if you feel like you're supposed to, I'll support you, but my first gut reaction is let it go. Well, I knew instantly what to do. It was let it go. Let the offense go. Forgive 70 times 7, whatever is needed, let the offense go. And then, as well in the relationship field, number 14, they value the role of mentors. You see, this world is like a jungle, and we need a guide in our life to help us get through the jungle. Here in Colorado, you can hire guides to help you find where the elk run. You can hire guides to help you on your hunting expedition. What is their advantage? They live in those mountains. They're in and out and hiking in them and horsebacking, and they know the times and the seasons and the change. And who would I be to come from California and say, I know where the elk are. I know where the bear is. I know where the deer are. We need those guides in our life. We need those mentors and voices of wisdom that have traveled the road in front of us, and that their wisdom can reach behind and speak into our lives and help us make it through. And then number 15, they run hard and they rest well. Successful people, leaders that last. I think we all get the run hard, run fast. I think we forget the rest well portion. I jotted this down. Are you making more investments than withdrawals? Are you making more investments in your life than withdrawals? I know so many pastors are making more withdrawals than they are investment in rest and restoration in their life. And so they end up overdrawing on their account. They end up bankrupting their life, their family, their ministry, their staff, because they're making more withdrawals than they are investments. And so I would encourage you, be intentional on your days out. Be intentional on maybe putting 2 days together. Maybe it's during the week, and you get away, you drive an hour to another city, you and your spouse, or you and your family and your kids, and you get a 48-hour break away and Priceline a hotel for $49 and eat at Taco Bell. It's not going to cost a lot of money, but I'm telling you, there's something about getting out of your zone and just getting away and feeling like I'm putting some distance between me and the busyness and the pace of ministry. You see, our goal is to produce a sustainable ministry. And all too often we run hard and we run fast, but we forget to rest. And so I would encourage you to rest well. Be intentional on planning some vacation time. And then our last one this morning is they know their limits and they stay within them. Know who you are. Know what your limits are. I know what my weekly duties and tasks are, And I have other things that come in and other things that come onto my plate, and I have to learn to say no. I have to stay within my gifting. I have to learn to delegate what I'm not good at, to retain where my strength is, and I need to know my limits and stay within them. Years and years ago, an opportunity came up that there was some businessmen that were making some investments in some real estate, and man, it was turning hard and fast, and there was some high producing investments that were happening, and they were investing in some housing and new housing, and by the time that house was finished, they were seeing some amazing returns on their investment, and they approached me and said, "Would you be interested?" And I'm going to tell you, my flesh was interested. Could I? Wow. And I saw the dollar signs, and I had 10,000 that I could put towards that. And then there was this thing, what's your gift? Do you want to be a businessman? Do you want to be a real estate investor? That's what those guys do professionally. Do you want to stay in your gift? And I said, you know what? I'm going to withdraw. I'm not interested. I'm going to stay in my lane. I'm going to stay in my zone. And one of the things I've seen so often is I see business people who want to be pastors, and pastors who get enamored with the business world and they want to be business people. And they try and cross-pollinate those two. And most of the time, I'm not saying all the time, most of the time it's not a good mix. When I call somebody, let me just go there. I'm just going to go there. When in years gone by, I've had multiple opportunities to get in multi-level marketing investments. And I've had people come and say, "Dean, if you'll just let me put you in my downline, you don't have to do anything. I will put people in your downline. I'll fill it up." Well, what did I know? I know that they wanted to use my ministry reputation, my ministry integrity to give validity to their business. Now, whether the business was good, bad, or indifferent, I'm not going to get into that or try and figure that out. But if you're going to put your name on something, you need to be very wise in getting involved. And they didn't understand why I refused to get involved. And here's what I said. I said, this business is, so many people are getting involved in the church world, are getting involved in this multi-level marketing. When somebody sees my number come up on their phone, I don't want them to question, is he calling me to sell me something, or is he calling me as a friend or as my pastor? And I said, I don't want to muddy those waters. I want to maintain who I am. I'm a minister. I'm a pastor. I'm happy with who I am. Now, some of you are listening. Don't get upset. You're doing wonderful in the business and ministry field and world, and that is working for you. And I realize that some of you have to be in the business world to sustain yourself for ministry. I fully understand that. But where I'm talking to are those that are being sustained in ministry, and you're getting tempted to go back into the business world just to make some extra funds. I'm not opposed to having extra funds. I'm just asking, are you getting out of your gift? I think I've drilled that hole big enough, and you either love or hate me right now. But anyways, hey, be a leader that lasts. Be a leader that makes a difference and endures for the long haul. I want to remind you, you can shoot me questions. If you have any questions, things that you would like some input on, just email me, dean@rockfamilychurch.com. And if you're listening on iTunes, this is also available on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, it's also available in iTunes. God bless you guys. Hey, I'm excited. We've got some really interesting topics coming up in December and January. And then I've got my staff working on releasing, I think there's about 5 or 6 brand new teaching series that I'm going to be releasing that I've taught in the last year. And we haven't gotten those uploaded at deanhawk.com. We're going to be getting those uploaded. You'll get an email blast if you're on my email distribution list. You'll get an email blast, or I'll talk about it in the next podcast. All right. Bless you guys. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for joining us today. For a free sermon series and teaching outlines by Pastor Dean, visit us at deanhawk.com. Be sure and join us next month as we continue our growth on leadership.